Welcome back, everybody, to the LCS Challengers League. We got our final series of the day coming through, and let me just say, we've had some bangers from minute one, guys.
Unexpected bangers,
Unexpected. Those are the best kind, though. It's like when you find $20 in a pair of pants you haven't worn in a while, and you're like, oh my god.
It's a great feeling. That's a lot of money.
It's even better as an American, because our money is worth more.
Oh! Although I
Yeah.
imagine it's harder to lose, because it's bigger, right? So, like,
Yeah, and if you're blind, you can't tell what kind of bill it is, because it's all the same.
True. I mean, and I guess it means that, actually, I'm not even going to entertain this. We got our last series of the day, EGC Challengers versus Cincinnati Fear, guys. This is one where, I mean, expectations weren't as high, but I mean, the same could be said about the previous series. EGC, they've been looking really good so far, Josh, and soon when we take a look at them, this is the team we were kind of having questions about after week one.
Yeah, I mean, this was a team I was thinking about, the team that just seems to unexpectedly just be slamming teams you weren't expecting to, and also getting slammed by some teams, right? And they went 1-1 against Disguise yesterday. It was really close in Game 2 for a lot of it, but Evil Genius is still coming out on top. And the man of the moment, Ryoma, was able to save Game 2 and make sure that they could find that draw going up against one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, it's worth noting, too, Evil Genius Challengers, this is a team where they had roster issues all throughout spring. They needed a sub-80 carry. They needed a sub-mid laner. Shout out to Robbie Bob and Mobility. Yep. And now, finally, this was the EGC that was promised. And even though things were a little wishy-washy in week one, they really managed to turn things up. And splitting with Disguised Toast means that you're kind of liking their chances going into their opponent today in Cincinnati Fear.
This roster is very exciting for just the power level that they're packing, but then also the fact that they have an opportunity to do something big for EG, which is make it into a top placement, which they have not done as an organization in quite a while. But you got to get through teams like Cincinnati Fear to get there. Fear, unfortunately, the kind of overarching narrative around them right now is that their friendship buff is gone. They have lost Faisal and Trevor, and the team is looking rough since then. Shochi and Perry are still doing their absolute darndest, but Philip and JJ are still trying to find their way to gel with the team, because from what we knew of Fear before, those 5 players in spring chose to play together.
Yes.
Faisal got called up to FlyQuest. Trevor's now over on Supernova, and that was a big voice on the team and a big carry on the team that they need to fill those shoes up.
Yeah. I think it's worth even pointing out that they chose to play together to the point that when they were approaching organizations to potentially sponsor them for the split, they were saying, we come as a package deal. You take all 5 of us or you don't get any of us. And Cincinnati Fear was the one that was willing to take that deal. They have been looking, as we've been saying, not quite as strong now that they have lost a couple of their players. They aren't winning games for free with Faisal randomly popping off. And Trevor very clearly seems to have been a big voice in a lot of their shot calling. So as we take a look at this upcoming series, the question will be, has Cincinnati Fear figured out some of the things that they need to do in order to come back into it?
Right, and the thing is, too, with this team, we've had some eyes on Perry for the last little while, ever since his second place finish with Dignitas Academy in Proving Grounds last year. And he had a goal in spring that he was going to be a player who could prop up his team, be that carry to lead everyone to victory. We know Trevor was a big voice for this team in spring, but now that he's gone and JJ is joining the mix, Perry now has that opportunity where he's really got to put up.
Yeah, and I definitely feel as though Perry, as a player, we were kind of criticizing him before during his time on Dignitas Academy and then later Cincinnati Fear, as a player who could mostly only play champions that had 2 buttons to press. Now, we are still looking at this player as not necessarily the most mechanically talented player. Okay, fair. But it seems to me, as we watch him, as we see this newer version of Perry, is that he has been taking a lot more risks than we are used to seeing this player take in the past. And it doesn't feel entirely comfortable for him just quite yet. But that's something that we are really excited about, is just as we have been praising players like Spawn for putting themselves in these risky situations, can they actually make it work long term? So far, the answer has been, maybe, but if we can finally figure that out for Perry, suddenly this takes a player who wants to be a shot caller into a much more dangerous player as well.
You're talking about Perry. I'm actually looking more at the bot lane here when it comes to Fear and the difference between their performance last spring, where they kind of set a high bar, and now I don't think Manui has been surviving nearly as long. He kind of made a reputation in spring. He's like, oh, he's the AD carry that can survive these crazy situations. Well, he hasn't been doing as much of that, and the team's struggling because of it.
Yeah.
Right.
He's kind of back to Manui what we were expecting from before. He still plays a lot of the mages from time to time, but without the same kind of strong front line, his pockets have been crumbling faster and he hasn't been able to adapt yet.
I mean, I think we got to give him a little bit of grace. He was definitely one of our most improved players last split. That's usually not something that goes away just like that, especially when you're playing with a new support. So we'll kind of see how things play out. But this is not a great time to be struggling as a bot lane because your opponents are King and Smoothie. King being that player who we've definitely seen in the North American Tier 2 scene for a bit, even in LCS for a little bit. He is a player who is a force to be reckoned with. And since he got here onto EGC finally, he's been looking pretty good, Kangas.
Yeah, King, the big story in spring was that he was never able to make it onto the actual roster.
Literally never.
Subbing in. Shout outs to the collegiate players for filling in those shoes. But as we look at Evil Genius's clips of what they've accomplished so far this split, King has definitely been impressing. He is one of the players that we have our eyes on towards, like, you know, I know it's too early to really have definitive opinions on most valuable prospect, but wouldn't be surprised if his name starts coming up based on what he's been able to do so far.
Yeah, and King's also been a player, right? As we look at this roster did stay together in its entirety because of the fact that a lot of the Evil Geniuses staff didn't feel like they had gotten a fair shake based on what had happened in spring. Again, with King never actually showing up, playing with Robbie Bob over Ryoma for such a long period of time. And it's worth noting that while Evil Geniuses are, you know, still with a fairly mixed record at 5-3, King himself has been saying, yeah, I don't feel as though I am playing up to my own standards yet.
Yeah.
Oh, we love to hear that sort of thing from players who are in this Tier 2 scene. Right, this is a developmental league, everybody. And still, it's great to see him feel that way, especially with how well he's been playing so far. And it's exciting to see what new heights he's going to be able to reach. But there you have it, guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we're talking about King the whole time, but it also is cool to mention that Shaden is another player that was in conversations last spring about, like, he had those 4 games in a row with the double-digit kills. At
I got this one
it was
wrong
like
in trivia.
Yeah,
5. True. 5 games in a row. And there, at that time, is when we started the most valuable prospect conversation in spring, and it was like, is Shaden just like the clear front runner? It petered out once Ryoma actually made it on. Shaden was playing a different role for the team, but it's cool to see he's still pulling out fun picks like the Nocturne.
Well, we'll see. We could see that Nocturne come through. We've set up the match, guys, so before I let you take it away, chat, I have a proposition for you for this next upcoming halftime show game. I need you to answer some Twitch polls, so keep an eye on Twitch chat for that to happen. And with that being said, Kangas, Josh, game 1 of Series 3, take it away.
Thank you, Beatdown. A little bit of a tease there as to what our next Rally Cry halftime show could be. Make sure
he's offering another $1 million.
In chat. I hope he does offer us $1 million. I usually get that $1 million when we play.
Yeah, you will usually take it. I just got to say, I feel like that question was so weak sauce. It was like, wait, so would you like $1 million at no cost to you? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
although, if
said
Mazu
that,
then peters out and doesn't make it to LCS, we can all say that it was Winston's fault because he took $1 million and put him back on
the other
Wi-Fi.
part of it, I think the better question would have been, you get $1 million, but then your whole team has to play for the rest of the split on Wi-Fi.
I mean, that's only one split. I still feel like the $1 million
you probably just take yes.
might be warranted, even if you split it across the whole team. That's
yeah, $200,000 per player. I mean, still. Maybe we have to kick it up to the coach as we are already well into this one. The Milio Yumi already taken off the table, and the Manui special, the Seraphine ban, coming through from the other side as well.
Did Fear just ban Milio and Yumi on blue side?
They did. Yeah, you seem like you aren't super convinced of that one. It definitely feels as though
really hate that.
You know what else is still available?
What? Nico.
Nico.
How is Nico? What's going on?
I don't know.
Somebody check. Somebody check the Discord. Somebody check the alt chat. Did we just like handshake? Did we just make an agreement here?
Dude, I wish
everything else makes sense so far.
I know Emily Rand tweeted about this before, but I really wish there were more just like handshakes and just like agreements among teams. Like, hey, everybody, we're not going to ban this one, but we're just going to assume it is not on this patch. We can come back to it another time. But this is a spot where we do have Shochi picking up the LeBlanc relatively early on. Clearly a big believer in the item that shall not be named in this game, as they are going to be pushing through with that. But in the rest of it, I do want to note that the last time I saw Perry on this Viego, it's not good. He ended up getting caught a lot as Ryoma picking up the Ahri, and you seem more surprised about that than I was.
There's just still no Nico. We're just leaving it up. We're not going for it. We're ruining the stat. It was 100% presence. And now it's going to be gone, I guess. All right,
It can still be banned, you know. I feel like Soul could still play it.
Ah, yes. The top lane Nico. Oh, support Nico, maybe.
Yeah. I do know somebody who is a huge believer in the Nico support, but we'll get past that. We are already looking at a couple of mid-jungle duos that are going to be bashing heads in this game, and I have to admit, I think that that's going to be going over towards Evil Geniuses. With both of them having a lot of strength, there's a little bit more consistency coming out from the Evil Geniuses duo in Shaden and Ryoma, especially on the Vi and the Ahri, because the ultimate from Shaden is point and click, whereas Perry does need to hit that. There are more opportunities to flash away from it, and Evil Geniuses, we have seen what happens when Shaden and Ryoma come together to lock down a single target. It is really hard for other teams to deal with that because of how strong both of these players are mechanically.
Mid-jungle is often where we see the action happen early for Evil Geniuses Challengers. Soul's been kind of put on an island a little bit, playing weak side. A lot of top laners are in that position right now. No surprise given the current meta. We're past the spring days where we were seeing a lot of Fioras and Jaxes trying to solo carry games. As we see, a lot of the tanks are banned out, though. Gragas gone, Cassante gone. We'll see what Fear wants to ban, as Evil Geniuses will probably lock in a support and then go for the counter pick in the top lane if they fancy themselves. Soul getting a lead over Philip here, and Sion's off the table. So, yeah, top lane pool's heavily pinched.
And I do want to note here that in the games that Soul has looked good, it's because he has received ganks from Shaden, right? Most of the time, Soul has been struggling a lot in this top side of the map, and a large part of that comes down to the fact that it seems as though he has not been as comfortable laning at this level as he has in splits previously. But as we start looking at the last couple of picks, it is worth noting that JJ, a player who took spring off and doesn't look to have had as many games on the Milio and the Yumi, and I think that's kind of why you were a little bit disappointed in the banning phase coming out from Cincinnati Fear. Has put the same number of games on these players. Wow, that was a pivot.
Yeah, we went from 3 supports. I was like, I like all of these, actually, depending on what their game plan is. And then they just say, no, we're going for the Jax blind pick.
It's actually Jax support. This is getting played by JJ.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah,
The natural.
obviously. Well,
yeah, you rush, Static Shiv, Jax support. It's, just OP.
I'm going to have to think about that one a little bit more, because it's not the worst sounding thing I've ever heard, as they do. And
I promise you it's bad. Maybe
it's
as
not
bad
good,
as my Bard
but is it worse than 40% win rate bad? That's the question, because worse than 40% means you're actively inting your team. Anything above that means it is not good, but at least you have a chance.
But they do go with the Leona.
Yep.
The Jax blind pick is countered by the Malphite for Soul, who will just be trying to slow down that Jax's scaling, not let him snowball, and then be a menace in a team fight. Now, the reason I was excited about the Renata Glask is because of how much forward momentum this Evil Geniuses composition has. They still have that forward momentum. Like Vi, Ahri, Rakan, Malphite, all these champions love to go in. And Fear, I don't see a lot of tools to absorb that outside of Manui on the Xayah.
Yeah, I do need to check something, though, because I'm trying to remember the last time Soul has played the Malphite, because the thing about the Malphite is everyone's like, oh, this character is so easy. You just press Q on them over and over and over again. But we've also seen a lot of players try and just pick the Malphite into these counter matchups and get blasted. There's not a lot of options for Malphite to do much of anything. And let me take a look. This is his second game. He did win the other one, but he also had a KDA of 1.7. So
that's classic Malphite gameplay. What are you talking about?
But as we get into it, I do want to remind everybody to do beat down Thingamajigger and make sure that you do the pools that are in Twitch chat.
I believe it's polls.
Pools.
Polls.
Pools.
No, polls. Also, let us know who you think is going to win this one, EGC or Fear. While we're waiting for that, because it's a pretty safe start early on, no invades, I got a trivia question for you, Josh.
Trivia question. All right.
What is the head-to-head record of Fear versus Evil Geniuses from Spring Split coming into summer?
I do know this one, because we talked about it last night.
We did.
Yeah.
I'm setting you up for success here. You didn't have to say that. You could have just sounded smart.
4-0.
4-0. They 2-0'd in the regular split. They matched up round 1 of playoffs, and they 2-0'd again. So Fear are up in the head-to-head against Evil Geniuses. Fear obviously changed out 2 members. Evil Geniuses only changing out the 1, that being King, now rightfully on the roster. It was mobility last time around. They did have Ryoma at that point. So 7 out of 10 returning players. Does that mean that we favor Fear here, or are we still leaning more EGC?
I definitely feel as though this is a Evil Geniuses favored, but not by a huge margin, right?
Okay.
I definitely
So
think
now
that
you've cursed them, and they're going to lose because of everything else that's
fair.
happened today.
I mean, I was saying that both FlyQuest and Wildcard were more likely to 2-0 today than any other result. And now I think, to use more chess terminology, this is still a 3-result series. A draw and a win for either side is still in the cards. And so one of the big things that will really matter for a lot of this game is how well Ryoma plays in this mid lane. It is worth noting, as we talked about before, Smoothie dashes away, that one of the biggest parts from this matchup is that it has become more LeBlanc favored after the Static Shiv introduction than it was before, where it used to be very head-to-head.
We're giving a shout out to Lit Esports earlier from the OQ.
Hey, I know those guys.
Well. Shout out to the dads. Fathered the competition. What does that even mean?
What?
You fathered the competition. That's not like
I've read
saying,
fan
right?
fictions about this.
Well,
I have not, actually. If anybody wants to write NA Tier 2 and Tier 3 fan fiction, I will retweet it, though.
let's not. How about that? How about I don't want to live in that world. Although, content's content. I guess we got to take what we got. Catch up on the game, though. Let's get our attention off of this.
Fair.
This could go to a bad place fast.
Now, to quote Cubby, we do have a mirrored full clear coming out from both Shade and Perry being on
Is that what it's
opposite
called?
sides of the map. Yeah, because, you do the same thing. It looks like a yin-yang.
But it's not the same thing because they're opposite. A mirrored would be that they start on the same side and go to the same side, right?
No, that's matched.
But do you know how mirrors work?
I do.
So, what?
Yeah.
I imagine
They
the
do
mirrors
the
across
same-
the river. Are we implying that
Well, the important point
how
is
would that even work?
where they end up, right? Because they are on opposite sides of the map here, they are not matching each other when they get into the lanes. And so, as Shaden starts looking around to get some vision down, there's nothing that Perry can do about it. And because he's a little bit faster with his clear, they're both setting up in a position where Perry is actually able to hit the Raptors, whereas Shaden has nothing to be going for. Instead, has to go into the mid lane. He's going to run into the enemy jungle.
Oh, he does a Vault Breaker over the wall. Instead, plays very safe. I think sniffed out that Perry was there based on where Shochi was positioned, so Perry gets most of that Raptor invade.
Yeah, and will be a little bit faster as JJ goes in.
Smoothie, nicely done there to prevent Manui from getting in and laying more damage down onto Kings. Now JJ actually gets chunked down himself. Really well played from Rakan. I love to see that kind of call when you see the Leona go in. Don't jump on the Leona.
Jaden's top.
Very tanky.
Yeah.
Not going to go for the gank top, though.
It is worth noting that you were talking about the friendship buff being gone. Now, JJ did take the spring split off, did a fair amount of traveling from what I understand, but did come back with the idea of having just been asked to join the rest of the team, right? Just coming here with the idea of like, hey, we want to play with you. We think you're the best player who is currently not on a team to play with us. And JJ was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and play with these guys. I know a lot of these players. And so far, we have been seeing that the break that he took has not made him a better player, right? It was a lot of traveling, but one of the things that we thought he was going to do was what he did for Dignitas Academy back in the day. Be the mama bear, make sure that the comms were good and they had plans.
I just remember going back to that, just how much he disliked that nickname. But it's also Father's Day, so I'm trying to think if there's a different way to frame. Whatever. It's fine. Ooh, roam here from JJ. Speaking of, lands a Zenith Blade onto Ryoma, and they lock him down. Had flash available, no time to use it. First blood claimed by Shochi.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the flash coming through from Perry super necessary to lock down the stun and make sure Ryoma didn't have an opportunity to back away. And now Shochi can just pepper Smoothie and Shaden with damage as we leave everybody going back to their lanes. But this is something that JJ has been pretty good at throughout his time, is moving into the mid lane, helping out the mid laners there, and also calling for more support, right? This is not just a plan made by JJ. This is something where Perry also coming in. They know they need to get the burst before anything else happens, and it gets them a kill in a lane that they really needed for the advantage.
And it wasn't even a flash from JJ to get in range to pull that off. just confidence in the Zenith Blade, making it. Ryoma had time to flash. I don't think expected Perry to be there to provide that extra bit of damage, so it does go down, but the team is focused on the Dragon. Shaden has gone right to that objective. They have bot lane priority with a mixed reset between Manui and JJ, so first objective should go over to Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, and also a big advantage coming out in this bottom side as well. King and Smoothie currently up wave and a half up against Manui, and as all of this wave gets picked up by JJ, I mean, that's just more that is being missed from the AD carry. JJ's roams have not gone unpunished so far.
And we saw that Smoothie did even cancel Manui's back there, which is what allowed them to get another wave shoved in. JJ tried to catch some of that, as also an invade from Shaden will take away the red buff. So Perry's about to come down to the bottom jungle, realize the buff is gone. And Krugs will come off spawn, so he's just got to go to those and then back to the clear, but doesn't get much in answer. The Dragon was a big pickup for Evil Geniuses, and bot lane's looking all right.
Yeah. I'm also really curious what abilities Soul is maxing, right? This is oftentimes one where you have a lot of freedom to do a couple of different play styles, but it looks as though Soul going for a Q max style based on the fact that they do have the Comet. And now Perry moving up towards the top half of the map could potentially look for a play there, but Shaden will be there faster. Soul's ultimate makes him much more dangerous.
Philip is also going for a reset, stopped, as Perry's now on to the red buff. Shochi mirroring. Interesting from Perry that he didn't even go for the Krugs. He saw that his red buff was gone and just immediately invaded Shaden on his red buff. We'll see the decision-making of Perry right now as he will push Shaden away from the jungle. Top laners know that their junglers are nearby, so no action from either side.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Soul to just pull the trigger, but saving the ultimate for the Rift Herald fight instead, knows that Philip has been cut out, and this is a full collapse onto the members of Fear.
Yeah, look at the supports roaming up here. JJ and Smoothie spotting each other out now at the encampment bush. Smoothie will have to walk up to group with the team. Evil Geniuses have taken over the approach right now. Re-engage onto JJ, locking him down, and that's the pick on the enemy support. Evil Geniuses claim one. Perry's still unspotted for right now, but Soul did not ult. They still have Malphite engage.
Cincinnati Fear is still just looking a little bit out of sorts as Perry still unnoticed in this brush, but not going to be able to find anything. I do have a question for you. What did you call that brush?
The encampment brush.
Okay. Did you make that one up? Because I've literally never heard that before. As Perry goes for a steal.
Okay, he is looking for it. I'll get back to the story time in just a moment. As the eye is available. He walks up. He's going to get the smite. Didn't quite see who claimed it. It looks like it is Evil Geniuses. Smoothie picks that one up.
No, it's Perry.
Oh, it was Perry. Okay, well, not too shabby from Evil Geniuses jungler, as Soul has to use the ultimate to get away. Well done.
But still.
From Viego.
Still. Also, I'm being told the polls are just now starting to go into Twitch chat, so make sure you do those, and we will be your guinea pigs later to see what the polls are all about.
I have no idea what they're going to be for.
What are these? Why is it encampment bush?
Okay, so, I don't know, but I know who started it.
Okay.
There's a caster. I worked with him often on Wild Rift casting named TJ.
Okay.
He also did the League Day audio broadcast of LCS with myself, Cubby, and Space Ghost back in summer of 2021. And he was the first one to call it that. Not gonna lie, no idea what it means, but it sounds cool.
Do you know what most people
we had to
call
come
that
up with
bush?
unique ways to like describe things with just words, because nobody can see it. So when you say brush, explaining the river brush from mid lane on the top side is just like, that's too many words.
Do you know what most people call those brushes?
What they call what brushes?
The encampment bushes.
What do they call them?
Line brush.
You know what? Now that you say that, I might have called the wrong brush the wrong thing. I think the encampment brush is actually the one that wraps around the rock a little bit.
Okay. Well, all right, King.
Sorry,
looking
TJ,
for the
misquoting you on your nicknames for the brushes.
That's all good, but we are getting fighting around this upcoming dragon.
Where Shochi jumps in on top of, wait, who is that? That's Ryoma getting locked down right there. The Ari's over the wall, Spear rushes back in. Shochi's actually in trouble, but he jumps back into Ryoma.
Let's go, Shochi.
And will claim the kill. Shochi.
He's out.
The only one they fear is him, as King will walk up and try to claim the enemy mid laner. Oh, he will get him. And now Manui flashes in like a madman and is instantly punished for it. Evil Geniuses will pick up 2.
Fear believed in themselves a little bit too hard there. I'm gonna be honest, they go in. Manui flashing over the wall, trying to find the damage on King. But this was just starting as all kinds of setup around the dragon, right? I love this ultimate from JJ to lock them down, make sure there's enough damage here from Shochi. And honestly, great work coming through from Shochi to chase after Ayoma, get the last bit of damage through because of all the extra attack damage that comes out with this kind of build. But from here, I'm so confident that Shochi just leaves. There is not enough damage to kill King here, and even as I try and go for it, they get all the damage down that they were trying to go for, and unfortunately lost a couple of flashes, giving Shadens a little bit of extra gold that he probably didn't need as Soul. I'm honestly shocked that he has not thrown out an ultimate in anger yet, right? I guess it's a gentle man.
You know, he's saving it for the fights. Maybe he's got a TP down to the dragon as it is just taken away by Fear. So maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just not looking for it himself.
But still, this has been... We've had a lot of chaotic games so far today, Steve, and every single time as we go back and forth...
Oh, God. I'm never ready for it.
It's one hell of an item. But now, Fear going for that similar thing. We've seen this gank come through a lot, but they can find Smoothie?
Big splash. Oh, okay. They want to commit once they saw Smoothie there, I suppose. I still feel like you can just pull the trigger. Leona can take up that turret forever, but not going to go for it instead.
I think JJ
is actually completely separated from the team now. Knocked up, a charm will land. Doesn't have the shield Enduring up anymore. Taking a lot of damage! And they trade it right on back to Shaden. Support for jungler and Soul. Oh no! Finally joins up with the team, and the ult was a little wide. Shochi, meanwhile, jumps away from Arioma, who will not land the charm, but does chunk out Shochi.
Yeah, I love the look there from Arioma. At the same time, though, we are dropping the Herald here, and Perry is around. Stuns a target. I don't know if they were expecting, but it is going to be a couple of plates on up on the top side. Philip has been uncontested up there. Does have the Divine Center completed and is now proxying up against Soul. And knowing that Soul has no ultimate leaves Philip free to kind of do whatever. It feels as though Philip has not really been tested up in the top side of the map. And I know that was Soul's second ultimate, but I didn't actually see the first one because it happened off screen.
No, I believe he used the first one
Oh, was that at the Rift Herald?
It was at the Rift Herald. Yeah, he used it to get away from the fight. So 0 for 2 landing those. Well, it's a very impactful ult. You really need to get mileage out of that because that's the majority of what the champion brings. And Evil Genius is yet to really find much purchase with this pick. They're down about close to 2,000 gold. We see right now Shochi, Perry, and Philip all ahead of their opponents.
Yeah. Manui still a little bit behind based on the fact that the kills have gone over to King and some of the plays around the map, flashing over the wall to give a little bit too much money over to Evil Geniuses. But still, as we were calling out, with all of the kerfuffles happening in the bottom half of the map, I think the biggest story is that Philip actually really far ahead of Soul at this point. Up about 3 waves, also gotten a bunch of plates, and now as we are swapping the map, once again playing Australian lanes, it is in fact going to be Philip, static shift, on the top side, excuse me, on the bottom side of the map, because it's the Rift Herald to play around, not the Dragon.
Everyone's rotating up towards it as King was already rotated mid. Looks like Fear have a different lane assignment idea. They have Manui up top lane. 1v1 in Soul currently, and Philip is in the bottom lane. Ryoma just landed a charm. Here comes Shaden looking at him. Not going to use the assault, or the ultimate available right there. And now we got a little bit of a scrap here towards the Herald, which is about to spawn. Big engage coming in from JJ. Smoothie, can you keep your carry alive? No, King had flash available, did not get it out in time, and is just chain CC'd.
The charm landing, but it doesn't quite matter. It looked like a really good stopwatch and cleanse from King to try and get themselves out of that one, but in the end, it is all for naught as Cincinnati Fear will be starting up the Rift Road for themselves. Perry stole the first one and now should be able to pick up the second one completely uncontested. Cincinnati Fear with a fairly large lead here, and it should continue to balloon as the Rift Herald will allow them to open up the map even further. The Static Shiv allows LeBlanc to roam super heavily after tapping away with a single auto attack and then becoming a menace standing in the fog of war. This turret in the mid lane going down and the turret in the top lane going down will open up the map so much for Shochi to take control.
Second time today we've seen a LeBlanc get this far ahead. We saw Get Back on it earlier. Now it's Shochi's time to shine. 3-1-1 on LeBlanc with 3 stacks of the Dark Seal as well, getting those up nice and early. I don't see anybody being able to answer this, especially when your tank is built full armor to try and survive against the Jax. So it's going to be a really rough position for Evil Geniuses to be in here. Again, facing off against potentially their Kryptonite. 0-4 against Fear. They're at the spring split. And off to a rough start here in summer. Fear now looking for another engagement onto Smoothie, who's able to battle dance over the wall back onto King, gets out to safety. The Dragon's up in 22 seconds, and currently Fear do have the control of the river.
Yeah, and you can't leave Philip alone. That is a turret that can go down very easily. And look at that, just a couple of auto attacks at the Q coming through to Ryoma and taking away a third of his HP. And now, oh, Perry finds him.
Ooh, Perry just sees him right there. Solar Flare landed the stun! Mid-Spirit Rush went through the epicenter of Solar Flare and stunned up Ryoma, so that Perry's able to follow up and get that kill. That should be another Dragon. The rest of Evil Geniuses are not looking to contest. They are in the mid lane. Nui and JJ holding the line right now. Jaden is walking up, but no, doesn't want it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, what's Shaden going to do? He's going to go onto Manui, cool, here's an ultimate. You're going to go onto JJ, cool, now Manui gets a free hit. It's a really tough position, not able to get anything done for Evil Geniuses, and one of the biggest problems that we have been seeing from this Evil Geniuses roster is as they start to fall behind, they have a lot of players who get really excited when they're ahead.
And speaking of, now they pull the trigger here
He's still
onto
full
JJ.
HP.
Manui free firing, Feather Recall still available, charmed up. Jumps up, Shoshi teleports into the fight. Ultimate from Soul onto 3!
Here's Philip.
That's what we're talking about, baby, but is it enough? Philip has joined in on the fight as well. 2 more kills picked up for Fear, turning their attention onto Soul. Parries onto Shochi. Or Smoothie, rather. Double kill for Shochi. And Fear just wiped the fight. Only Ryoma lives in the bottom lane. Fear pick up 4.
That was definitely a moment. Static Shiv is... You can't go on this. This is exactly why we were saying you have to go on Manui, but he's got the ultimate, so you can't go on Manui. And then Manui just gets the free hit, and Xayah firing down this corridor is so difficult to do anything against. He uses the ultimate, and suddenly everybody here is in trouble. And his soul comes over the wall. Yes, they end up having enough damage to take down the AD carry, but it gives so much time for everybody else to come into the fight. You don't have an AD carry to play with anymore. Smoothie has to try and run, and with all of the damage being sunk into JJ, you notice he didn't take any damage for the first half of that team fight.
You could tell that King wasn't fully on board either with where he was positioning. He walked up, hesitated, walked back, said, all right, full send. There's a TP coming. I can't get out that way. Let's just try our best. Doesn't land the Moonlight Vigil on Manui because he's airborne currently, but it's a really tough position for Evil Geniuses to try and take that fight, and now they're falling even further behind. You were just said that when this team starts to fall behind, they struggle to slow it down. And I think it's plays like that where they get a little over-eager, where we really see that come to a head.
Yeah, and honestly, the prediction from this point coming through is that Evil Geniuses will probably have at least 3 more isolated deaths. Somebody who just gets picked off, maybe going for a flank, maybe going for something where they're not close to anybody else, and lose that way. But trying to make something happen, and JJ coming around the wall, not going to do anything, but this teleport comes through.
Teleport in from Soul, has the ultimate available, and they're going to catch Perry.
Okay.
All right, good start for Evil Geniuses. Commit to the bit, and they will claim their enemy jungler. Oh, the Baron just spawned. They're on this.
This is super dangerous. All right,
everybody's
they're
here
funneled
from
in.
Fear. Everybody's available. Shoshi can look to land the poke. Manui has everything up. JJ can go for the engage, teleport in from Ryoma. Evil Geniuses have still committed to the Baron. Shochi's just going to pepper them with damage. Soul re-engages back in onto Shochi. They haven't locked him down. King's out of the pit. Phillips chasing down the enemy AD carry, and he takes him out. Fear say, bet you won't. Evil Geniuses double kill to Shochi. They only trade Philip back. That's a 1 for 3, 1 for 4 in favor of Fear.
And this Rift Herald's still going? They dropped that when Perry died. It almost gets the crash onto the second turret, but that is a Baron going over in the wrong direction here for Evil Geniuses. They thought they could take this fight, but they were never able to get onto Manui. Once again, Manui completely untouched in these fights, even though he doesn't have all the damage necessary in order to absolutely take control. Trying to put all the damage onto 1 or 2 members is not working here for Evil Geniuses. They need to be able to hit multiple people. Soul hitting only 1 one person with his ultimate, and it's Shoshi. He's still going to be free. You are leaving Manui and Philip completely untouched in these fights, and they're able to take apart different halves of the fight. Soul is not going to be killing Shochi all on his own, and as Philip goes in, you can see that King also, even though he throws out so many different chakrams to try and get the damage down, he ends up just getting run down on the far side of the fight because of how powerful this W is. At the same time, Soul landing the ult onto only one person does not sync it up with anything from Shaden, and I mean, Shochi, he's full HP. He didn't actually take any of the damage. There was no combo with the ultimate.
Feel bad for King. I mean, he's got a Viricon Malphite. He's like, wait, why is there a Jax on me? Why is this legal? I feel like this shouldn't happen. It's like, oh, they all jumped on the LeBlanc. Rough. As EG now have to, pay for their decisions. Fear have the Baron. They're walking up here. We've had a day full of upsets, and it looks like Fear will give us another one. 2-6 coming into the day. We're not convincing us that they had the same magic stuff that we saw in spring that gave them a perfect record against Evil Geniuses 4-0 throughout the regular season and playoffs. They look to continue that forward as this looks to be a 5-0 now in game number 1 of this best of 2 series. Fear are well ahead. 10,000 gold lead at 23 minutes. What is going on with these games today, Josh?
I'm not sure. I think the crazy thing to remember from a lot of this was it Evil Geniuses that was the team that was the king of draws in, what was it, 2022? Right, was this the team?
I believe so, yeah. They basically went 1-1 against everybody.
Against everybody. And now it looks like we might be in a similar spot, right? They go 1-1 against Disguise and then turn it around. They're looking to be going 1-1 against Cincinnati Fear immediately afterwards. Right, this is definitely not what we were expecting coming out from Evil Geniuses. And again, why they're going to be such a divisive team in terms of where people are thinking they are going to end up. We had a discussion yesterday. Me, Desrex, and Cubby were arguing about where this team will end the standings. This is kind of what happens, right? When they get ahead, just like Maryville, they get really ahead. But when they get behind, they get further behind.
If they're able to turn this one around, everyone from Evil Geniuses are grouped up. They do not have to worry about Shochi, who is pushing top wave, but Evil Geniuses, despite that fact, do not have the confidence to go forward. They have so many tools to engage. I thought maybe they would just pull the trigger right there since they had a champ advantage, but no, they will let Shochi push another wave in, go for their resets,
he's teleporting mid.
Get off the map.
Okay.
Oh, that is a TP.
Hit him, Soul. All right.
Yeah, you press Q.
Yeah, you get him. All right. Well, the bottom lane turret goes down. This is what, unfortunately, Evil Geniuses kind of looks like when they fall behind. And the coordination just seems to disappear from this roster. And that's going to be one of the things that they will need to work on, right? We know individually all these players are talented enough to hang with some of the top dogs. But the question is, who is the voice of reason when the game starts to get out of hand? Cincinnati Fear, we had similar questions from them, right? In spring, the answer was very clearly a combination of Perry and Trevor, who were the ones who were able to keep the game going, continue to make plans. We were hoping that JJ would be able to step into Trevor's shoes, and to his credit, so far, he's been doing a pretty darn good job with a lot of these engages, making sure that he is the one tanking up, protecting all of his Cubs.
And when you talk about voices on Fear, I also want to bring our attention to Shochi, because I've heard things about this guy on comms and how loud he gets when things are going well.
Yep.
And how much he pops off when they're fighting those plays. I imagine a 7-1 and 6 LeBlanc that has 22 stacks in the Medjai's spellbook. It probably making a lot of noise in the comms right now. So well, maybe we'll get a chance to talk to Shochi after this series is done if they're able to pick up the win. I'm not sure if we have yet this
We actually
generally.
have, yeah.
All right, so we have already talked to him. So we'll probably try and get somebody else in.
Yeah, he was calling out a couple players as frauds. Earlier, if you remember
You're
that.
right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I was the one that interviewed him. I should have remembered that. Well, regardless, I'm sure he's a lot of fun to have on comms right now as he's walking up. There is a Death Rush, though, set up from Evil Geniuses. She's just doing a lot of damage to King right there. They're trying to engage back on top of him. JJ keeping the Cubs safe. And he says, yeah, you're not going to get on my mid laner, or if you do, you're going to pay the ultimate price. 2 kills picked up for Fear. No one responded to. As Evil Geniuses were not able to claim Shochi's life. That's flash out from the LeBlanc, but that is it.
I love the look, right? You got to try and go for some of these plays, but like you said, too much protection coming through for Fear, and we do see Manui standing tall again. This is going to be the base opening up as multiple inhibitor turrets should be going down. Shochi already up on the top side, very confident in the rest of his map to stay strong, knowing that there's no engaged tools left for Evil Geniuses. 2 inhibitors should be going down, and the only question is how can Fear close this game out most cleanly from this position? It's not the fastest game or even the most dominant game, but still, it's not far behind what we have been seeing. Even just our last series, teams are just taking turns bopping each other on the head.
About a 15,000 gold lead as the resets come through and Baron spawns in 15 seconds. So you ask how cleanly can they close this out? If they're doing it perfect, I imagine within a minute. Claim the Baron, walk these super minions up, and just force the fight. They don't have the best engage tools themselves. It really is just down to JJ. Oftentimes, they're just absorbing Evil Geniuses engages and then turning it back around.
Yep.
But if you have Baron buff and you can walk up 2 waves of supers, you kind of force the hand of Evil Geniuses at that point.
Also, pay attention to the fact that Shochi has 4 items completed. One of them is a 25-stack Magi Soul Stealer, the BM book. And it looks like...
Wait, how much AP did he have? I didn't see. Now we're looking at Ram. Can we go back to Shochi? I want to see that AP number.
608. That is 350 more than what Ryoma had.
Can we put the mouse over the static shiv and see how much damage the passive proc does? I'm scared
We'll get to that in a sec.
Oh, he just jumped in. Oh, bye,
Okay.
Shaden.
Okay.
Have a good time.
Next.
Hope you enjoyed it. As the,
Nice.
Oh, nice
Let's
flash from
go.
Perry. The nice little mechanic right there. Landing the sideways, too.
Okay.
Okay, going a little deep this time around. And his punish
Okay.
triple solar flare from JJ. How clean can they end it? I think we got our answer. Bop, bop, bop. Give a double kill to Ryoma for good measure, but then close out anyway. Cincinnati Fear claiming game number 1 against Evil Geniuses Challengers and continue the day of upsets going up in the series.
Yeah, Fear looking good off of this one, right? And Shochi, like you were calling out, potentially the main character of this anime. So many kills on this LeBlanc. The static ship have to do a ton of damage from this position, but ultimately, great stuff from Cincinnati Fear. They won a couple of skirmishes and never really let it go. And
yeah.
This is something that will help assuage some of the fears that people had about this roster and whether or not they would be able to come back from was such a lackluster start to the season.
Yeah, expectations were generally high based on how well the majority of the core did in spring. We weren't sure what this meant with their slow start in summer, but now turning things around, we'll see if they can do it 2 games in a row as they still have 1 more game to play out. With that said, we're going to send it to a short break before we bring back Beatdown for our Rally Cry halftime show, and we'll see you there.